Because I moved to London from
Where did you move? How did you
from
get to London?
Glasgow. So basically, how I started with London was I was completely disillusioned with the university and what I'd been sold. So I studied sales and marketing, and I had been at university for approximately 7 years. So it took me 7 years really to get one degree. But in that, I could have probably got 2 degrees really in the time that I was there. So I graduated with 2-1, and I started looking for jobs in the nearest biggest city to where I went to university, which is Paisley, which is the kind of town just on the outskirts of Glasgow. And so I went to Glasgow, and me and my boyfriend at the time, who was just basically a very good looking but kind of lazy bastard, yeah, who didn't do much, and we decided to move to Glasgow together, and we got a flat, and it was one of these basement flats in a really posh area of the West End of Glasgow. So it was like a really great address, but the shittest flat in the world.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, I went to a job interview. They said they were looking for people in sales and marketing and with degrees. So I went to a interview, so I was all dressed up in a suit, and I remember it well because it was actually on my birthday, which is the 18th of December.
Nice.
And I was meeting my parents after this interview, because I said, well, I've got this interview, and typical Scottish parents, they said, well, we'll be in the pub, the Counting House, which had just opened at the time in Glasgow, so meet us in there, and I was like, yeah, and I know they were getting me something special for my birthday. Yeah, it's something I'd asked for. I'd actually asked for them to have a picture painted for me by an artist. So I knew I was getting that. So it's all dressed up, and I went into this interview. It was in St Vincent Street in Glasgow. Went up the stairs, and I sat in front of this guy, and something just didn't feel right. I was like, what's going on here? And it was more like kind of like they didn't really interview me. They were just like, right, okay, you're fine, you can come with us. And I said, come where?
Yeah.
And they opened this other room up, and there was about 20 folk, all dressed like me, yeah, girls and boys. And he says, we're going to go down to the basement, here's your bags, and we're going to go to the pubs, and you're going to sell these key rings and bottle openers. And I was like, what?
Yeah. So it wasn't actually.
It was nothing, basically.
Yeah.
And so I was like, right. So we went in, we got into this like kind of people carrier. I remember being in the people carrier, and we're moving along this central Glasgow, and Glasgow is built in a grid system, so it kind of stop at lights, and we stopped at lights, and I slid open the door, and I did a Barry Bolt out of the van, and I went to the pub, and I sat down, and I told my parents, fuck, if this is all the sales and marketing jobs in Glasgow, I can't be selling, corkscrews in Maryhill, this is not going to happen to me. Yeah, it was bullshit, just absolute bullshit. And so what I started to do was I started to look at jobs in London, and they were worded so amazingly well, and the first thing I did was recruitment consultancy, which is just basically like some form of sort of slave trading as far as I'm concerned. That's why I feel now that I'm out the other side of it, because it took me such a long time to get out of it. But I came straight down to London. I got a job, a graduate recruitment job at a company called Lawson and Clark, and they were based in Finsbury Circus, right in the city. Do you know what I mean? So just right in Liverpool Street. And my sister Joanne had two. My sister's a lesbian. She had two friends who had a house in Stoke Newington, and they said that I could stay with them rent-free on their couch until I found somewhere. So I went down and I stayed on their couch, and they were constantly fighting, these two. It was like a complete nightmare for 2 weeks. And I eventually found somewhere, and me and my boyfriend came down with a van. We moved all our stuff in, and I started working basically as a recruitment consultant in the city. But it was really fierce. It was like a really super hyper competitive. Actually, I remember one time being a contributor for an ITV series talking about sales in London, and I was talking about this Lawson Clark. It was like notorious. They taped every phone conversation you had, yeah, for training, for training purposes. And on a Friday, they'd play it back in the room with all the other graduates, and they would dissect your calls, and it was really intense. And then they would fire people on the spot. But the one thing they were extremely strict about was timekeeping.
Right.
And if you were 5 minutes late, you'd be fired.
Yeah.
Right, so there was 26 people that started in the graduate recruitment scheme, and only 4 graduated, me and this girl who had to even change her name for the job because they felt it sounded too ethnic. No, totally. Her name's Carmina Lookskill, and they changed it to Carmina Craik because that was her mother's maiden name, and it was just they just wanted to mould you into this machine, the sales machine. And actually, I was actually pretty good at it, you know. And so I think on the last day, the kind of like fallout day, we were supposed to graduate and become consultants. This woman, Jo Dalton, I'll never forget it. She'd been a bitch to me, and because I'm dyslexic, you know, I was always really hypersensitive of anybody looking at any written work that I had. And she would go in purpose, like come up to me and ridicule me about my spelling and my handwriting and stuff like that, and I hated her for it. And I'll never forget the day that she took me into the room and she said, oh, you know, you've graduated, and I says, well, you can stick it. Because I just got headhunted by Michael Page, and I'll be leaving tomorrow. Michael Page Recruitment. And so I worked for a company. It wasn't Michael Page, it was their sister company, which was Accountancy Editions. I don't even know if they're still around.
So you're sourcing accountants for jobs? That's what you're doing?
Yep. I did that for about 3 years, and I moved around to different companies and made quite a bit of money. But after about 5-6 years, I just couldn't do it anymore. I was just like, you know what, I don't like it, it's not creative, people don't, you know, they don't, you know, I was never going to fit into the mould. So
how long did you stay there? 5 years?
About 5 years in total, from about, my mid-20s till about my early 30s.
So you made a lot of money doing slave jobs.
Just selling people, you know, basically phoning people up and asking them, would they come meet me for a coffee? And headhunting them and moving them, and eventually from accountants to whatever, I ended up moving people like me, like sales and marketing people, into advertising companies and agencies. And I had a sort of an affinity with those people, and understood the products and whatnot and what they had to do. So it was actually that was bearable. But I ended up just getting so sucked into the high wages, the fun life, and I would say I had a good year, 70. Yeah, I mean, and back then we're talking, so it was a lot of money, but a lot of, you know, you started buying, you know, drugs, you'd be, you know, like taking, you know, like you'd be completely high at the weekend, you'd be like burnt out, you know what I mean? And London was just, it was, you know, back then it was a completely different place. It was, you know, nowadays it's just not, you know, it's not even.
What's different about it?
Well, it was just a lot more raw. You know what I mean? Like, you know,
very distinct city, and then the rest.
Totally. I mean, just right around the corner from where we're at now, used to be a club called QN, Queer Nation, and it was a club, basically a black gay club. You know what I mean? In Brixton, I mean, now you go to Brixton, which is, you know, the home of sort of, you know, the West Indian culture here, and I think you'll get, you know, a zooped up chicken shop, you know what I mean, is the only reference to the Windrush Red generation, really, apart from the stuff they put around, you know. But I mean, it's just totally different, you know what I mean, totally. You know, you also as well, there was like drinking and drugs were commonplace. I mean, you know, like literally you'd finish work every day and you'd go to the pub and you'd have 5 pints. I know that's not much going. You're like that. You're like every day. Every day.
Yeah, but every day it adds up to fucking hell.
Oh, totally. But it wouldn't even touch the sides. I wouldn't even notice it. It would just be normal. Yeah. I mean, it was always about going to the furthest you could go without fucking up your next again day. You know, like, so 5 pints would be. I'd go to the Stag, which is no longer in Victoria. It's this gay bar in Victoria. Straight after work, I'd go there, and I'd have 5 pints. And on my 5th pint, I would be going to get the tube. I'd be on that tube, home, clothes off, you know what I mean, under my bed, sleeping, straight back up, you know, it's 6:30 in the morning.
What were your days like?
So 6:30 in the morning till, say, I would say 7 at night, 7, 8 at night, and then you'd go till 11:30, and then you'd straight back again. You didn't watch TV, you didn't do anything normal. You were just like.
You still living with your boyfriend at this time?
I was still living with my boyfriend, Aaron Nicholson at the time. Yeah. He was basically, I mean, how can I describe it? Well, we smoked a lot of weed. I mean, him more than me, I think, at that point. And he was a waiter in a cocktail bar, and an aspiring model. Oh yeah, an aspiring model at the time. But didn't really get anywhere because he had no motivation. You know, he was just completely motivationless. And there was only so much you can do. Eventually, I got him a job in an advertising agency, and he worked at that for 2 years.
Yeah.
But it was direct marketing, working in list buying and selling. It was good money, actually, and a good company based down in Hammersmith, you know what I mean? But, you know, it wasn't what he wanted to do. Now actually, he lives with his very rich, interior designer boyfriend who designs hotels in Bali, and I don't think he works. I think he just lives off him, and that's what he was always going to do.
Yeah.
I just don't think I was the right, the right sugar daddy at the right time. Even though we're born exactly the same day in life, me and Aaron, half an hour apart.
Really?
Yeah, first time I ever slept with him, I when he went to the bathroom, I was looking in his top drawer, and I opened up his top drawer and I opened up his passport, and I couldn't believe it when it was his 18/12/1978. I was like, the fuck, that's my birthday. That's the age. Yeah, even 1 year our parents sent us the same car. No, he's Irish.
You weren't born anywhere close to each other?
No, but there was a terrible storm that night, my parents say. And they both always talk about it.
There's a lad from the sky, a red beam.
Yeah, totally. The devil emerged for one night.
One night only.
Mm.
So you're in London.
Yep.
You've got this job. You're 31 years old. I guess something like early 30s.
Mid-30s, finished recruitment, decided that everyone else had done that whole travel around the world and discovered themselves thing, and I hadn't. So I phoned up Barclays, and they gave me £7,000 of a loan. And I don't think it was Barclays, I think it was, I can't remember who it was, NatWest or something at the time. And I basically was really sucked into sort of like cocaine at the time. And I knew that I had to make a change in my life or I was going to become a cokehead, you know what I mean? And so
Is that because of London?
I don't think it was because of London. No, I think I'm just an addictive personality, and London's full of them. And I think if you're an addictive personality near a source where you can get something that makes you happy, you know, I mean that I think that happens just as easy in Scarborough or Glasgow as it does in London. But I think that I actually think London it's harder because you have to keep yourself together so well. So if you have your head screwed on, you know, you go near coke, you're fucked. If you don't at least, you know, if you can't handle it, if you can't manage that addiction, you know. And so I ended up saying, right, there's always a point I come to, and I'm like, right, enough is enough. You know, I can't continue doing this. And the point was, well, I broke up with my. Me and my boyfriend had been wanting to break up for years. You know, I was like on and off, him cheating on me not trusting him, all that shit. And eventually, I met somebody else, and that's when I really discovered that I wasn't really. I had a real interest in black men. And so so basically I met a music producer from Trinidad, and we started going out even when I was seeing Aaron. I was like, we were just cheating on each other so badly, and eventually it just all came to my head, and he said, look, I'm going to Australia. And so he just, you know, up and left and went to Australia, and I'm sitting back in London, not enjoying my life, thinking how much he's having fun in Australia and how much I haven't done that with my life. So I got this loan, quit my job. I ended up started seeing Dr. Rob Berkeley at the time because I quit my job and I had gardening leave for 3 months, which means that they pay your full salary plus your bonus, and all you do is you just do nothing. You're not allowed to contact any clients within that time. You're not allowed to, you know, speak to any, you know, former colleagues or anything like that. And it's fine. You're paying you to do nothing. And so I thought, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this time to really lose weight, go to the gym, quit the coke. But that didn't happen. I ended up taking more of the coke, going to the gym, and really losing lots of weight, getting a six-pack and feeling really positive about myself, even though I was up here, was all falling apart. And I booked a ticket and I flew to Narita Airport in Japan, and I stripped for a couple of months in a club. And I was just, I don't know how I even got the job. I really don't. I was a bit of a haze.
In a Japanese gay strip.
A Japanese gay strip club, basically.
But I've been to Japan. I never fucking saw gay clubs anywhere.
They're basically quite hidden. Yeah, they're quite hidden. I mean, I even went to a place that was just for they call them pandas, which are Japanese bears, you know, big guys. And I went there, and there was all these guys with their like kind of almost like, you know, sumo outfits on and eating. There was sweets everywhere and cake and all. I mean, it's very like you wouldn't know, because just like here, like you don't speak Japanese, so you're not going to read it in the press. You're not going to see it in a text. You're not going to, you know what I mean? So these things are going to be really, you know, underground. But if you know somebody, and I always find the people that you should know. And so I started working in this club, and I worked there for about 2 months, and I got a job. I did the Tokyo Dance Theatre, which was like K-Fed, who used to go out with Britney. He had a dance school in Japan, and I met the dance teacher. We ended up having a relationship. I did dance school for a while, and then I went from there. I actually grew up for a couple of years in Australia, and so I knew Australia, and I knew I wanted to go to Australia after Japan. So I booked my ticket, and I went and stayed with family friends of mine in Brisbane. And then I went to Sydney and, you know, I mean, met up with the ex-boyfriend, told them all the things I had to do, And I in the meantime, I set up a business. Well, I didn't set up a business. I met someone who had set up a business, and they needed someone just like me. And it was called www.freightnow.com.au. Freightnow. So a truck used to go from Sydney fully loaded to Melbourne and back, they could go onto, if they were coming back empty, they could go onto our website. It was like an eBay for non-sensitive commercial freight. Anyway, we ended up making a lot of money, and we sold it for 30 million. But I was really unhappy. Even though, like, so we'd done all this work, we'd travelled all around Australia. I was at the pinnacle of my professional career. I was so lonely. I was so lonely. In Australia, I was just like Australians, they're so guarded and offish, and I'm Scottish, and I just wanted to, you know, connect with people. I wanted to have like friends where I could go around their house and just sit and smoke a joint and watch TV, and I could never get that. And it was just like I felt so alone, and I ended up saying, like, I'm just going to take my cut. And get the fuck out of there. And my friend Jennifer Gardner in London, it was her wedding, and I was to be a big part of that. So I flew over for the wedding and just never flew back. Left my apartment, all my clothes, everything. Never ever returned. My business partner fucking hates me to this day.
But he's still Australia. Still running the business, or he sold it as well?
Sold it. Sold it for 30 mil.
And you took your shares?
I took a bit.
So you're back in London?
So I'm back in London. I'm staying at Jennifer's house, where well, you'll not know where it is. Where well, you do know where it is. You know the little square in Streatham, the little square, and that used to be a gay sauna. The whole up the side of the wall of that, you know, like it was so it was called Chariot's Gay Sauna. So the little square that's in Streatham. But she lived in Thornley Road, which is just behind there. So I was just basically sleeping on her couch, and I looked on the internet for the stuff to do, and there was this application for Get Me the Producer.
Tell me about that.
And it was a Channel 4 show. It was done in like the Channel 4 show, done in the same style, same format as The Apprentice, and it was looking for TV producers to go head to head in this show. And I think out of something like 12,000 people applied, and I got on the show, the final 12. And I've just been watching I haven't watched the show in years. I've just started watching it with some of my interns and stuff like that for a laugh. But it was
same style as Apprentice.
Yeah. So Greg Dyke was our Alan Sugar stroke Trump, and basically they set challenges each week. So make a magazine show, make a comedy, make this sort of thing. And
way up your street from everything you've done.
but back then I was a real dickhead. Do you know what I mean? We all were. You know, when we think about your young selves. Do you know what I mean? Really, quite. And when I look back at some of the stuff I said and did, I mean, I was pretty harsh on a lot of people. So it's just a big mirror to yourself. Doing reality TV shows, it really makes you self-aware. Do you know what I mean? Anyway.
Are you like, when you're on it, are you like conscious of the feeling that millions of people are going to see it?
No.
No.
Not at all.
So you feel like you're in a bubble?
You're totally, because I mean, you end up forgetting the cameras are there.
Yeah.
But you also, if you're an extrovert like me, you love a fucking camera on you too. Do you know what I mean? So it's like a heightened state of. It's the only time in my life I've felt like I've never needed to smoke weed.
Really? So the adrenaline of having the cameras, which you love, made you stop, or substitute
just substituted it. It gave me that sort of, I don't know what it did, but it definitely, I mean, you know.
Or was it the motivation of being on a TV show?
I think it was the motivation of being on a TV show and changing my life and all that. And unfortunately, and I don't know why, there is probably laws in place now, but there was, when the show stopped and I didn't win, you know, I got to the final and all that sort of stuff, and I felt like I should have been, I got to final 2, and I felt like I should have won, and I didn't, and then no one called. And I was like, fuck, what do I do? I've just come back from Australia. I've got nowhere to live. No apartment. Stay on a couch. I lost this show. No job. What do I do? And I mean, even my friend Jennifer was like, you've got to do something. So I mean, I remember one time I took a job, and it was standing in a Guantanamo Bay fucking jumpsuit, bright orange jumpsuit, holding a golf sign saying Debenham sale one day only. And I was like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? And eventually, I got a job with I got a job with the London Underground, and I was working in their platform for art department, you know, just as a temp. Yeah, no problem. Just as a temp, and I eventually then got into the marketing communications department. I started directing and producing all their internal films. And that is how I met a woman called Kat Lewis, and I pitched her my idea called $1 Million Trader, which is a show for BBC, and we ended up making a show reel together and getting quite in cahoots. She was a great, you know, person to meet in my life, and great but harsh, probably the harshest fucking person I've ever met. She's an executive producer for her own production company called 9 Lives. She produces Songs of Praise. Her husband produces Panorama. I mean, she's a known figure on TV, big deal. And she helped me sort of become a producer. Yeah. She really.
You didn't have any producing skills before.
Well, from the show, but that wasn't really real. And then she took me on board, and I produced a show for her called It Pays to Watch on Channel 5. So I used my economics degree for the first time in my life, but basically it was it was an As Live show for Channel 5. It got canned because we went into the financial crisis, and Martin Lewis was telling people to put money in banks that cancelled, and Martin Lewis was the presenter of the show, and me and Martin had a few run-ins ourselves. He's a fucking... He runs moneysavingexpert.com. It's one of the biggest... it's a big thing. So yeah. And from there, I got fired from there, and where we're at right now in this place was the first place that gave me my break after 2 years of being unemployed. SW9. I did their website. I took photographs. Yeah, I came down and asked them, you should get a website. And they were like, yeah, so we can do a video, take photographs, make a website for you. And I got David Mason, I don't know if you ever met him. Yeah, I did. I got David Mason to do it all, and I took a cut, and he took a cut. He was a website builder, really. You're thinking of Jamie Coward. And then I got a job with Lambeth Council, and they wanted me to go to housing offices and sit there, and just for the day, like incognito. And if I hear something that I want to record it about the service people were getting. And so I took it quite seriously, and I went round all the housing offices in the whole of Lambeth. That's quite a lot.
How many is there?
I mean, it must be about 15.
And you had to
sit there all day, and Sean, my boyfriend at the time, he'd wait outside with a camera, big dreadlock black guy, and I'd walk up to people that were complaining about, you're supposed to fix my sink, and I'd walk up and say, hey, do I talk to me outside about that? And some of them were like, fuck yeah. And I knew I had that ability to kind of get things out of people. So I made this film for Lambeth Council, and they paid me $5,000 for it, and that was a lot of money for me when I was like at the time. And I delivered the film, and they were over the moon with it. And that is how I met Jamie Coward, because a woman called Jackie Vance, who again is quite a famous industry person, I had been working with her for just a few days to sell some camera lessons to people. And I said, look, I've got this film that I'm doing with Lambeth Council, and I need an editor. And she said, I know this guy called Jamie Coward. And that's where me and Jamie's Coward love affair started, really. I mean, not that we've ever even ever attracted to each other in any way, but it was like a meeting of two people at the right time, the right space.
Put time in their lives, need
totally.
something to do that's going to
totally
invigorate them.
It nearly killed us. It nearly killed the both of us.
The relationship?
The relationship. I mean, Jamie had a breakdown, and you know, I mean, and I you know,
Why?
the pressure. The pressure. It's just so. I mean, you just couldn't handle the pressure.
Right.
And like, if you're running an agency, you're lying constantly to people. You're telling people, yeah, we can do that, and and he could never lie. You know, he's just.
This is not the agency feedback. This is different.
No, well, this was feedback. Yes, so at the very, very early stages of feedback. I mean, it wasn't even called feedback.
How did you start?
So feedback started was Lambeth Council gave me this job, yeah, and you know, like I often did, and then Robert Berkeley from the Runnymede Trust, he said to me, he's like an ex-boyfriend of mine, is like, oh, you're getting into this filming and stuff. Oh, you know, we would like a few films done. I've got this rap artist and this guy called Linton Kwesi Johnston, who's like one of the biggest spoken word poets, and you know, I want to do this event. And I was like, right, okay. And what really sold it, so first of all, I met Jamie through Jackie Vance, and I went up to his flat in Pimlico, quite a famous address, Dolphin Square, where all the alleged Tory sex offences went on. And he was in this flat with all these crazy guys. Because what Jamie Coward was to me was a tap into really intelligent editors. I mean, he basically went to, you know, an amazing school. He had all these eccentric, really interesting friends that were really knowledgeable about stuff. And it was like, okay, I could really work with these people because they couldn't sell themselves. They couldn't combine all their skills into one product. You know, whereas someone like me, who's what I call Jerry Halliwell, you know, like hungry as fucking a talentless dog, I can take anyone's talent, repackage it, and sell it on. You know what I mean? So I was like, right, that's what I'm going to focus on here. I'm going to look at Jamie, see what I can get from him. I can go out and get the jobs.
Yes, you're sourcing clients.
Yeah, I mean, I like Jamie is so socially awkward and he's got Asperger's, really. You know what I mean? That he's not good with clients.
Yeah.
But what he produces is amazing. It makes clients go, oh my god, this is just intensely good. So what, you know, like I thought, how do I do that? So I became the voice of Jamie in front of clients, you know, and but it was more than that. I was good at kind of like schmoozing with people. I was good at sort of getting the job, asking for the job, asking for money, building clients. I mean, we started, so how did Google start? That was probably our big break, you know. Google and Coots were our big, like, these two fucking young guys from fucking nowhere have just cracked two of the largest companies in the world. And how did, how it all happened was through Runnymede, through the credibility of having a race relation think tank that you'd done quite a lot of work with. And so, the sort of like in the early 2000 and sort of 8, 9, 10, diversity and inclusion was really a big thing. And
was it just coming in?
It was just coming in, really. You know, I mean, it'd been around for a while, but people weren't putting it on their flag masts, or you know, like they weren't saying, yeah, not that they are now. And basically, I met the diversity and inclusion sort of manager, comms manager for Google, filming for another event, you know, and we ended up having a bit of a fling, and that, you know, and you're married at the time, so I don't know if I want to say that. No names. But no names. But the thing is, like, we had this connection. I really actually liked her. She was really cool, and I loved her story and whatnot. But maybe I wanted Google. Yeah. Maybe I was desperate. I had a fling with a woman. Yeah.
Really? Fuck, you never told me that.
Yeah.
That's super fucking interesting. But what made you? You were a gay bloke. You're gay, right?
Yeah.
You're the gayest person in the world.
Yeah.
So
well,
I
mean, I think we had a connect. I would say that actually, I'm really interested in connections with people, and I had a connection with her, but I really wanted the fucking company. And you know, when you really want something, you just do, and you've had a few drinks, you know, like fuck it.
Click back into
toilet stalls, you know what I mean? Just pushing yourself in there totally. And I used every asset I could possibly use to get the job. And we started working for Google. And how I got involved, I've always had, I think in London, when you need to have people, a network. Yes. If you don't have a network, you're fucked, you know what I mean? And I think like, and how do you build a network? Well, you help other people, and the people that you help then become part of your network. Totally. And Gillian MacDonald, who's a friend of my brother's, she needed a job, and I was working in London Underground way back when, And I said, right, there's a job here. She didn't even have to interview for it. Boom, job straight away, yeah? And when she moved to Coutts, she gave me a call. One of the biggest, well, private bank in the UK anyway. And boom, we walked in and I met this woman called Laurie Costello, and she was like a really formidable American ball breaker. And we hit it off. And it was, Gillian was a very small part of that whole Coutts experience. I think I worked with her in one video, and now I still work for Coutts today. And still work with Laurie, you know what I mean?
But then, so we're at the infancy of feedback at this point, which is 2009, 2010.
No, 2000 from 7 to 9. The first two you built it. That we built it up. We had Google then. We had Coutts. We had who else? We have TNS. We had a few big clients, and we moved into downstairs of Runnymede office, which was in Shoreditch, which is like the best location you could possibly imagine. And they charged me £200 a month for their amazing downstairs part of their office, because it was a shared office, and it was an amazing location. And that's when Methadone really hit, and me and Jamie went wild. Methadone, so it was like it started off as a research chemical.
Yeah, I was saying that to wean you off like heroin.
No, that's methadone.
Is it?
Yeah, so methadone was a gay drug, really, that hit like the gay scene, and so we're doing really well at this point, and this drug comes flooding in, and me and Jamie start throwing major parties on a Friday. So we'd work all week, and we'd open up the big glass doors onto the street. We started. Jamie was a DJ. He had lots of I love to fucking go off my tits and dance. So we had this amazing, vibrant company where, one of the reasons how I built Feedback, one of the reasons that people knew who I was and were depending on me over that 2-year period was every Friday I'd go to the Wall, right, which was a wall in Soho, where I'd sit there with pre-rolled joints and bottles of Desperados, and I'd meet Jamie there, I'd meet editors there, I'd meet all the people that I had worked with over the years, because they might have been working for other people, but they could always depend that I'd be at the Wall between 6 o'clock till 9 o'clock every Friday, and that's where I'd meet people and communicate and whatnot. And people would say to me, "Oh, why don't you go to a pub?" And I went, "I can't afford to buy everyone fucking drinks, and you can't smoke weed in a pub." So that. I mean, that was the things the weird things we did. But then we started developing this thing called Barrow Jam, or Jamie had developed it really. And it was just basically like a car battery attached to a speaker, and we could plug our fucking iPhones or our phones in there, and we could just have like street parties wherever. And so we get fucking high at our faces, and this is all over London. We did it. We've done it in the South Bank. We've done it in Soho. We've done it in Hyde Park. We could do it in Notting Hill. It was just like a little thing we do every weekend, and it was just like an amazing little vibe. You just start drinking in the street, playing your music, dancing with folk. Building your network, totally. You never know who you're going to meet. Do you know what I mean? And it's true. It's true. But the methadone came in, and it took a lot of prisoners. It didn't take me and Jamie, thank God, but it nearly did. The people became like kind of sex addicts. They became. Do you know what I mean? It was a very hyper crazy drug. You know what I mean? All over London. And we just flooded the whole place. I mean, it was just crazy. You just couldn't go anywhere without. I mean, the whole of Vauxhall would smell of methadone. It was a kind of sweet smell. It was like a sweet smell. You could just smell it instantly, and you were like, "Oh fucking hell!" It just get you completely wired. You'd be like, cocaine is like. It was like £5 a gram. Really? So and you could buy it on the internet. Yeah. But then they banned it. They banned it, and then but then we knew all the big dealers that were selling it. We were friends with them all. I mean, I'd got on my bike from Shoreditch, cycle all the way to where was it, Earl's Court, and pick up ridiculous 30, 40 grams. Yeah. Because it was so cheap, and just come back and we just party all night, and it was just nuts. I mean, snort, crush it down, snort it. A lot of people then started with slamming it and putting it in, injecting it to themselves and stuff like that. It was crazy. It's a crazy drug. How do you buy it? Is it like a? It's like Coke. Just like Coke, yeah. You get powder, and it just crystals, and you just crunch them, and it just turns into powder, and you go for it. And I think at that time, Jamie couldn't handle. Me and Jamie are totally different people, right? I'm a fucking slugger trying to survive, and he is someone that wants to do everything by the book, and that was never going to work, you know. And after a while, it just broke down, and we were screaming and shouting at each other. Computers got thrown. And I was good. I felt like I was good to Jamie, and I felt Jamie was good to me. But I think there's always going to be a bit of resentment there, even though we're best friends. You know what I mean? I would like to think he's one of my best friends, but it's, you know what I mean. There's a love there, but it's like a brotherly love, right? You know what I mean? Like you can fucking kill him as well.
But now, right, okay. So we're in Brixton now, where Feedback now lives.
Yeah.
You live in Brixton.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing Feedback films?
Feedback films. I've been doing it for 10 years.
10 years. And was it always like UGC stuff, or
Never.
was it always internal stuff?
No, you just have to roll with the punches. I mean, like when we first started doing stuff, it was like what we called corp docs, so like short form documentary corporate films. You know, I mean, who the fuck has got time to watch one of them anymore? I mean, and so what also as well, like you know, what we were doing back 10 years ago with video was actually quite pioneering, and people were like, what? Even like, for example, my film Get Croydon, Is Croydon Racist? I mean, I can watch it, fucking still stands the test of time today.
It's got about 60,000 views.
Totally. I mean,
you can tell it's in the infancy of
totally.
video production.
Totally, but the thing is as well, like, what I've really benefited from is from that experience of like having a real niche market when I first started. So when we first started my strapline, or what I used to say, so what's Feedback Films? Is we make documentaries for the UK's largest think tanks and academic institutions. They used to write reports, but who reads reports? We make them into short form films people can watch online. So that was like a kind of like real niche thing. So if you're like me, as I said, the Jerry Halliwell, who isn't knowledgeable all this stuff, but once I find out, I'm so passionate and enthusiastic to find out more. I was partnering with some of the greatest minds in the UK. You know, like real thought leaders. You know, like so think tanks like NEF, Demos, Runnymede Trust. You know, these were my clients, and they were giving me some kudos. Do you think I'd get anywhere near Google if they hadn't watched my film Is Croydon Racist, or they hadn't watched? Oh, they did. They definitely did. They saw those films because they were in the diversity inclusion sphere, and they were like, oh, we want something just like that. Actually, can you do that for us? And I think we made Google Women, we made Black History Month for Google. We got in on that diversity and inclusion ticket.
Funny is you got in the start of diversity inclusion and video.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Which is fucking interesting because that's huge. Both of them are massive things.
Totally. But I mean, I think diversity and inclusion had been around, but I think video itself and using video. So the idea of like I mean, you could be so flippant. You could walk in and say, I mean, do you really want to be printing things? I mean, I used to walk into people's rooms, and especially think tanks, and say, look at all your reports. What the fuck?
Yeah, and no one reads them.
No one reads them. Why don't you fucking share them on your fucking sign-off? Why don't you have a link to your latest Vimeo film or whatever?
Was it hard to sell when you were first doing it, a video? Or was it easy? Do you know what I mean? Was it hard because people
You have to have credibility first. Who the fuck is going to listen to fucking me? So you have to have a few things up your sleeve first. And as I said, if it wasn't for someone like Dr. Robert Berkeley, you know, basically giving us those projects first and giving us bump up, letting us tell their story, then we would never have got anywhere.
Really? Okay. So if you didn't meet him,
but I think if I hadn't had the clients like Rob, I would never have got the prestigious clients now. You know what I mean? Totally. And I think that's my whole point. Like so about the last couple of years now, this network, so the Feedback's been going for, say, 10 years. A lot of people asking me for favours.
Really?
Yeah, and I'm now on the one where I used to do them the favours. Now I'm doing them. You know what I mean? It's you have to scratch each other's back. It has to work like that.
Yeah. So we're focusing on London specifically. It's a network. It's a network of people networking all the time.
Well, no, I would say that it's London is about what people can do for you.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Which is what people kind of do think about London. Is it's very sharky. Very like.
What can he do for me? How's he going to make my life easier? What skills is he going to bring to the table? And when you have got a skill and you can bring it to the table, then you're into the room. And you can start working in the network. But if you've got nothing to give, you ain't getting in.
Yeah.
You even getting a look in.
Yeah. Because most people I've interviewed for the people of London is everyone seems to have an interesting job, and if they don't, they're fucking depressed. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Everyone I've interviewed has either been doing something they actually really fucking love, or they've came from somewhere else to do something they've loved like you did. Yeah. But do you think that's a specific to London? I'm thinking like.
No, I think I think it depends who you are and what kind of background you come from. I had no money when I came here. I came down here 200 quid or something like that, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't have anything at all. So, I mean, if you're starting off there, you're going to have to fucking kiss a few frogs. You're going to have to do it. I've got not a bit of cash even to give you. Sorry about that.
Brother, if I had some, I'd give you. I'm sorry.
Sorry, dude.
Sorry, man. Dude, if I had some, I'd give you.
Not even a penny on me?
Oh, yeah, of course, I'm sick of it, totally. Of course, come on,
Go for it. Peace. Totally have it. Go for it, dude. What was your question? Go for it. Yeah, I've got one here. Yeah, it's fine.
No, we want to back. Is it specific to London, or is it just a personality thing in London?
I've got like 3.
I'm not that one. You know what I want to talk about? I want to talk about Brixton. Okay?
Yeah.
Because the last 10 years you're like, well, no, you weren't in Brixton all the time, were you?
No, God, no. Yeah.
5-6 years ago, I want to say.
Well, I mean, Brixton itself. Well, I mean, what the office?
Yeah.
2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, 2.5 years ago. Yeah. So I was in Limehouse before that, and Shoreditch. Yeah, short. Did you interview there? Yeah. You did actually. I totally did. Yeah, that office is horrible.
Well, you know what? It's actually quite similar to your office now, but your office is in a better area.
Yeah,
it's
definitely.
A video production office with Max streaming down the walls.
Totally. This is shit. That place was terrible. We looked onto a cement factory. You opened the windows and sediment would cover the whole fucking place. Just sweep the floor every fucking night. It's nice.
What was the difference between Limehouse and Brixton then?
Limehouse was like, I don't know, it was like Afghanistan. I swear to God. It was like, I mean, there was some real characters there, and it was, and you know, like, I have to take something. My father said, Jonathan, you've got an erratic soul. You need to be by water to calm you down. And I'd take Heike down to when the tide was out, I'd take him down to a little beach, and we'd play on the beach together, and it definitely was very calming and relaxing. But the fucking hour and 40 minutes commute sometimes was not worth it. I'm like, I'll do it at the beach, thanks. So now everything's quite local. I can put the dog in the bag, cycle to work. You know what I mean? And
where do you live?
At Crystal Palace, Gypsy Hill.
And when you moved there very recently?
Yeah, so just a year in Gypsy Hill.
Yeah.
Just a year in
Gypsy
Hill.
Hill?
I love it. I really like it, because at the very end of rather than have a river view, which I don't think I could ever afford, if you walk to the end of my road, there's Norwood Park, and there's a spot there where you can see the whole of the city from one side, which is sort of your kind of Millbank Tower, sort of Pimlico, straight right down to Canary Wharf. I mean, I don't think there's another place you can see. I think Kite Flyers Hill on the other side of the river you can, but so it's like having a kind of river view, you know what I mean? You just walk down the road, walk the dog, and I'm part of a doggy socialisation group, and totally. Oh, everyone knows me. But yeah, it's it's been a crazy time, I must admit.
And we'll wrap it up by going. So you've gone Paisley.
Yeah, Paisley.
To London.
Paisley to Glasgow.
Glasgow.
Yeah, well, I was born in a little island called Millport. From Millport to Falkirk, from Falkirk to Paisley, from Paisley to Glasgow, from Glasgow to London, from London to Tokyo, from Tokyo to Brisbane, from Brisbane to Sydney, from Sydney to London.
Yeah. And how does that compare? How does London compare with all the other places you've been or lived? Do you know what I mean?
I just don't think that for me, it's about culture. I am dyslexic, so I suffer from really not having brilliant, great language skills, but not great like learning other language skills. And I think that a lot for me is about how I can entertain and get a reaction from people. And so I find that living in an English-speaking country, America being one of my favourites of choice, because they just love a Scot there. They love it. They love it. And I love an American accent. But I think really London to me has it all, because I like to be anonymous.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, I do.
Even though you're such an extrovert? Even
though I'm such an extrovert.
Like the cloak of anonymity.
Yeah. Look, I'm no extra than everyone else here. I think that my extraness blends in to the whole. Totally.
We drop you back in Paisley now.
The thing is, I think that what it is like people would know you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? They're like, oh, there's that Jonathan. And you know what? Like, I remember the first time I'd ever experienced it, I think I was in Brisbane and I went to gay clubbing a few times. Yeah, I was snogging folk and fucking ripping it up. And what the fuck, you know? And one guy walked up to me and was like, you snogged me last week, what you doing? I'm like, that fucking, what are you talking about? I can't even remember you. Do you know what I mean? And then I thought that, oh, this is a really small pool here. There's not enough oxygen to really contain me for that time, and folk are going to talk about you and all that shit. I've not got time for that. I want to be in places where people have got busy enough lives that they don't give a fuck about what I'm doing.
Yes, which is definitely fucking
Totally.
Yeah, and you're the perfect person to ask this. Last question.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a cliche to say London's like a multicultural haven, which it is. It's a bit of a cliche, and people always say it as if like, oh, that's what makes London. Definitely is. Yeah. But why do you think it works in London? Do you know what I mean?
I think like the multiculturalism, right, which is like a 90s word. I don't really think it does exist. I think people do stick to their own. I think that it takes a lot of open-mindedness for both a black and a white person to come together today and talk about stuff. I mean, like, I'm in an interracial relationship for nearly 11 years, and I don't like watching any TV shows without black people in them because I feel they're going to alienate my partner. So there might be a film. I'm like, I love that film. I think there's another one. I think it was called State of Play. You know, and I love that film, a psychological thriller. And I would just switch it on, and I thought to myself, there's only.
Sorry, dude.
No, we just gave to someone. I've got no more cash left. Sorry, dude. And so I was like, I was like that. The only character in this is like kind of like subservient, but so I'm like what you call like your super woke white guy, you know, but do you know what I mean? I think there's a lot of white people that are like, yeah, I've got a black friend, and I'm like, I don't know. I just think that, like. I don't know. I think places like London, right? They're really right. I think places like London, you really do get, the mix of cultures. But when people like us who are Scottish or Northern, who never really had a black, we come down. It takes a lot more for us to build up those relationships because it's alien to us. Whereas someone like Jamie Coward, well, he was like, it was the same 50-50 black and white, so and they grew up together, and there's a bond there created where you realise that they're no different from you. And I think that it's harder for people to do that here. You've got to go to the right places. You've got to be open. You've got to be open-minded and willing to take a chance. And a lot of people these days, they just want to stick to what they know.
Yeah, totally. Well, it's a very human thing to do that, isn't it? There's like a deep tribal thing that's in us.
Oh, totally.
But it's like, this is what's fucking fascinating that I'm trying to draw out is. Everyone says it's a multicultural haven as if everyone just gets along. It's a big fucking party. Everyone parties together, and even though I think that's true, maybe the circles we have around it is. But let's go back to your film. Is Croydon racist? Yeah. Was Croydon racist?
Croydon's totally racist. Right. And the thing that I learned about Croydon is that. The stark fact that we were really investigating was that if you live in the south of the borough, you're going to live 10 years longer than people that live in the north of the borough. And that's like, no matter what way you split it, that's not right. Yeah. The fact is that, Croydon it's probably one of the most multicultural places in the whole of the UK, But they still have their, they've got major issues with people on the front saying it's all cool, but actually when you really look into who these kids play with at school, where they go, what groups they go to, it's still very segregated. Really? Yeah, right. I think so. And I think that actually there's, but not all over the place. We've got loads of places where there are really cool things happening, and people are genuinely friends with somebody of a different race. It's just not as much as you'd think it is.
So you think it's got all the pieces to be the
I just think it gives it. I think that at the end of the day, that our society is going to become so mixed that if you're a racist, you're going to be the one that's fucking circling yourself out.